The void breathed silence around the starship Odyssey, a deep-hulled explorer vessel commissioned and owned, sole and mainframe, by the Xenovations Corporation. Its mission parameters were precise, financially motivated, charting the mineral-rich arteries of unexplored space within the sprawling, violent beauty of the NGC 7822 nebula. This celestial nursery, a canvas splashed with the birth pains of suns and the dying embers of others, held countless secrets, but Xenovations sought only the profitable ones. Zerath 9, orbiting its placid G-type star like a dusty pearl, was flagged for potential. Its ochre clouds veiled a surface suspected of harboring rare earths and heavy metals, the lifeblood of Earth's insatiable industries. Dr. Callum Hayes, ostensibly the mission's chief xenobotanist and geologist, felt a familiar pang of dissonance. The corporate designation felt cold, stripping the world of its potential wonder. He, like several others in the science decks, preferred the whispered designation Ethelgard, Old Garden, a nod to the persistent, anomalous energy signatures and faint, complex biosignatures that defied simple geological explanations, hinting at something more profound sleeping beneath the rust-colored dust. The Odyssey itself was a city in miniature adrift in the cosmic ocean, its corridors humming with recycled air and the low thrum of the containment fields holding its fusion heart in check. Life aboard followed the rigid rhythm dictated by mission clocks and corporate directives, overseen by Commander Marcus Trask. Trask was a man forged in the crucible of corporate procedure, his career built on efficiency, risk mitigation, and unwavering adherence to the Xenovations Charter. His gaze, when it fell upon the science teams, often carried a hint of impatient skepticism, viewing their academic curiosity as a potential deviation from the profit-driven flight plan. Callum, whose fascination lay in the intricate tapestries of alien life rather than ore concentrations, frequently found himself navigating the narrow straits between genuine scientific inquiry and Trask's inflexible schedule. The energy pulses from Zerath 9, dismissed by orbital analysis as deep mantle convection or residual tectonic settling, resonated differently in Callum's mind. They felt too rhythmic, too patterned, like a coded message whispered across millennia, or perhaps impossibly a slow dreaming heartbeat. His current rotation placed him planetside, operating from landing zone Delta in the equatorial highlands. This region was a testament to Zerath 99's violent geological past, a stark landscape of towering, flat-topped mesas sculpted by wind and time, separated by labyrinthine canyons where shadows clung stubbornly against the glare of the system's star. His multi-terrain rover, equipped with a suite of sensors, including the ground-penetrating radar array, was his mobile laboratory, his bubble of Earth normal atmosphere against the thin, argon-heavy alien air. The mission directive was clear: follow the pre-plotted survey grid, collect surface samples, analyze atmospheric composition, and report all findings according to standard Xenovations protocols. Deviation was not encouraged. It was grounds for reprimand, potentially jeopardizing future postings. The GPR display flickered, painting a cross-section of the subterranean world beneath the rover's treads. Layers of sedimentary rock, pockets of subsurface ice, dense metallic veins, the expected geological narrative. Callum drove slowly, the rover's wide tires crunching over the iron-rich regolith. The wind, thin but persistent, moaned around the vehicle's canopy, the only sound besides the hum of the life support. He consulted his primary scanner array, cross-referencing the GPR data with the energy readings. The rhythmic pulse persisted, faint but undeniable, its origin point seemingly miles off his designated course. somewhere deep beneath the imposing escarpment of the Kronos Mesa to the west. Orbital scans had flagged it, logged it as geothermal anomaly 7 Sigma, and moved on. But Callum couldn't shake the feeling it was more. The pattern was too regular, the frequency too stable for simple geology. It felt intentional. He slowed the rover, pulling it to a halt near the edge of a wide, shallow basin. The survey grid called for him to turn north here, following the contour lines towards a promising silicate deposit. But the mesa drew his gaze, a silent sentinel brooding under the alien sky. The energy pulse seemed to beckon, a siren song for his scientific soul. He checked his chronometer. He had an hour before his next scheduled check-in with the Odyssey. Enough time for a brief, unsanctioned detour. He rationalized it. A quick sensor sweep from closer proximity might clarify the anomaly's nature, allow him to definitively classify it as geological, thus satisfying protocol even in his minor breach. He knew it was a weak justification. The truth was simpler. He had to know. He altered the rover's course, heading directly towards the base of the Kronos Mesa. The terrain grew rougher, littered with boulders calved from the cliff face over countless eons. He maneuvered the vehicle carefully, the suspension groaning in protest. As he drew closer, the energy signature strengthened, resolving on his instruments from a vague pulse into a complex wave pattern. It was low frequency, modulated, carrying an undeniable signature of artificiality. His heart began to beat faster. This was no geothermal vent. This was technology, ancient, buried, and inexplicably active. He parked the rover at the foot of the cliff, nestled amongst a cluster of wind-carved rock formations that offered some concealment should orbital surveillance sweep this sector unexpectedly. He powered down the main systems, plunging the rover's interior into relative silence, broken only by the soft hiss of the oxygenator. The exterior atmospheric sensors confirmed the air was breathable, albeit thin, with nitrogen, argon, and trace elements predominating. Oxygen levels were marginal but sufficient for careful exertion. He pulled on his light environment suit helmet, primarily as a precaution against dust inhalation and potential pockets of toxic gas common in geologically active areas, though this place felt unnervingly still. He grabbed his handheld integrated scanner, a geological microhammer, sample bags, and a high-intensity variable beam illuminator. He slung a compact laser cutter over his shoulder, standard procedure for sample extraction, but potentially useful for unforeseen obstacles. Before stepping out, he cast a guilty glance at the comm panel. Reporting this now would bring Trask's immediate wrath, likely a recall order, and a security team dispatched to secure the find for corporate assessment. Discovery.in Xenovation's lexicon was synonymous with asset acquisition. Whatever lay beneath the mesa, Callum felt an instinctive need to understand it before the corporation could claim it. He activated the rover's short-range camouflage field, a minor energy drain, but enough to blend its metallic shell into the surrounding rock from casual observation scans. Then, he stepped out onto the alien soil. The wind tugged at his suit, carrying the faint, metallic tang he'd smelled before, now stronger, mixed with the dry scent of ancient dust. He consulted the handheld scanner, which now pointed definitively towards a section of the cliff face barely 20 meters away. There was no obvious entrance, just sheer, weathered rock, but the energy signature emanated clearly from behind the stone. He ran the scanner along the surface, searching for discontinuities, weaknesses. It highlighted a narrow, vertical fissure, almost perfectly concealed by an overhang and choked with loose scree. It looked like a natural crack, easily overlooked. But the energy readings peaked directly behind it. He used his hands and the small hammer to clear the loose rock and dust away from the fissure's base. It widened slightly, revealing not fractured rock, but a smooth, dark surface beneath the debris. Artificial. He shone his illuminator into the crack. It wasn't a crack at all, but a seam, a doorway, perhaps, sealed by time and geology. He tried pushing against it, but it didn't budge. He considered the laser cutter, but hesitated. Too destructive. Too likely to trigger unknown defenses or damage whatever lay within. He scanned the seam again, looking for a control mechanism, an activation point. Nothing obvious. Then, his scanner picked up a faint biosignature resonance point near the base, right where the energy field was strongest. It seemed keyed to complex organic molecules, protein chains, DNA. An idea sparked, reckless, and born of sheer scientific desperation. His own biosignature. The suit's gloves were thick, designed for insulation and protection. He carefully unsealed the wrist coupling of his right glove, exposing his bare hand to the thin Zerathian air. It felt cool, dry. He pressed his palm flat against the smooth, dark surface, directly over the resonance point. For a second, nothing happened. Then, he felt a faint vibration under his hand, a low hum that seemed to travel up his arm. The seam glowed, first faintly, then with increasing intensity, outlining a tall, rectangular doorway. With a soft hiss of displaced air, the panel slid silently sideways into the cliff face, revealing a dark opening. The air that flowed out from the tunnel was cool, still, and carried that same strange mix of metallic tang and ancient, dormant organic matter. It smelled like a tomb, but a tomb filled with sleeping potential rather than decay. He resealed his glove quickly, took a deep breath of his suit's filtered air, and directed his illuminator beam into the darkness. The tunnel sloped gently downwards, its walls fashioned from the same seamless, pearlescent black material as the door. Faint, intricate patterns, like dormant circuitry, were embedded within the material, emitting a barely perceptible luminescence. He stepped across the threshold, the door sliding shut behind him with another soft hiss, sealing him inside. The silence was absolute, profound, broken only by the sound of his own breathing echoing slightly in his helmet. He proceeded with caution, sweeping the beam from side to side. The tunnel was clearly artificial, the craftsmanship exquisite, unlike anything humanity had ever conceived. The embedded tracery on the walls pulsed, faintly, the rhythm matching the energy signature his scanner tracked, growing stronger as he descended. It felt less like walking down a tunnel, and more like entering the artery of some vast, sleeping organism. The low hum he'd felt at the door was now a palpable vibration in the floor, resonating through the soles of his boots, a deep bass note on the edge of hearing. After perhaps 50 meters of gradual descent, the tunnel opened abruptly into a cavern of breathtaking scale. His illuminator beam, powerful as it was, couldn't reach the ceiling, which soared into absolute darkness overhead. But the walls glowed with their own soft, internal light, shifting through subtle hues of violet, deep blue, and silver. They weren't solid walls, but seemed composed of interwoven strands of light or solidified energy, displaying intricate, flowing geometric patterns that shifted and reformed like living calligraphy. It was a geode woven from light and impossible technology, and in the vast cavern's center, arranged in a precise, complex circular pattern, stood the pods. There were dozens of them, perhaps over 100, each easily 3 meters tall, shaped like colossal, multifaceted crystals or organic seeds. They hummed with contained power, their surfaces shimmering faintly. Most were dark, their internal structures quiescent, dormant. But directly ahead of him, at the focal point of the circular arrangement, one pod glowed with a brighter, more insistent internal light. It pulsed with the energy signature he had followed, the source, the heart of the anomaly. This pod was different, more translucent than the others, and suspended within its glowing, crystalline matrix. Bathed in soft azure light was a figure, humanoid, unmistakably. Slender, graceful, held in perfect stasis. Callum approached slowly, awe warring with disbelief. His boots made no sound on the cavern floor, which seemed to absorb sound, enhancing the profound silence. He raised his scanner. The readings from the glowing pod were off the scale, displaying complex biological processes operating at a metabolic rate infinitesimally close to zero, yet undeniably alive. Life, suspended across unimaginable gulfs of time. The technology was light years beyond human understanding. He circled the pod, examining it from all angles. The figure within was feminine, her features delicate, serene, peaceful in her timeless sleep. Her skin had a pale, almost luminous quality, and strange, intricate markings adorned her forehead, spiraling down her visible arm. These markings seemed to mirror the subtle tracery embedded within the pod itself, suggesting a deep, symbiotic connection. Who were these beings? What vast purpose or unimaginable catastrophe had driven them to this state? Sleeping beneath the dust of a forgotten world, he knelt, bringing his helmet light closer to the crystalline surface. He could see her face more clearly now. High cheekbones, a slender neck, lips curved in the faintest suggestion of a smile. Her hair, pale as spun silver or moonlight, floated around her head as if underwater. He reached out instinctively, his gloved fingers tracing the smooth, cool curve of the pod. As his hand passed over a specific point near the base, where the internal light seemed brightest, the tracery beneath his glove flared slightly, the hum intensifying for a moment before settling back into its rhythm. An interface point. He needed data, samples, proof, something tangible to justify this monumental breach of protocol, this staggering discovery. He fumbled for his microscraper, intending to take a minuscule sample from the pod's exterior. To get a better angle, needing finer control, he foolishly, impulsively, unsealed his right glove again, just for a second. As he reached towards the base with the scraper, his bare index finger inadvertently brushed against a tiny, almost invisible seam in the crystalline surface, precisely where the light had flared moments before. A minuscule spark, barely visible, blue-white and quicker than thought, arced between his fingertip and the pod. It wasn't painful, just a faint tingle, like static discharge on a dry day. But the effect was instantaneous and catastrophic to the pod's stasis. The internal light exploded outwards, momentarily blinding him. The low hum escalated into a series of complex, resonant chimes that echoed and amplified within the vast chamber, shaking the very air. Alarms shrieked silently on his scanner's display. Catastrophic energy surge. Stasis field collapse imminent. Biological reactivation sequence immediate. Callum scrambled backwards, tripping over his own feet, landing hard on the unyielding floor. He stared, aghast, as the glowing pod underwent a rapid transformation. The crystalline facets shifted, seams glowing incandescently before retracting smoothly into the main body. A wave of intense cold washed outwards, vaporizing cryopreservative mist, hissing and swirling around the pod's base. The figure within, obscured for a moment by the mist, began to move. Slowly, languidly at first, then with increasing purpose. He fumbled with his glove, hastily resealing it, his breath catching in his throat, his heart hammering against his ribs. The front section of the pod irised open, petals of solidified light folding back gracefully, revealing the occupant fully. She floated, weightless it seemed, from the opening, her bare feet coming to rest soundlessly on the cavern floor. She stood tall, perhaps taller than him, her posture radiating an ancient, innate elegance. Her skin, now fully visible, possessed a subtle, pearlescent luminescence, and the intricate markings he had glimpsed now pulsed with a soft, rhythmic blue light, like captured constellations breathing. Her silver hair cascaded around her shoulders, settling as if gravity was a newly remembered concept. Then, her eyes opened. They were large, almond-shaped, tilted slightly upwards at the outer corners. The irises were the color of deep amethyst, swirling with inner light, her pupils contracting slightly as they adjusted to the direct beam of his helmet lamp. She turned her head, her gaze sweeping over the cavern, taking in the rows of darkened pods, before finally settling on him. There was no fear in her eyes, no confusion, no aggression, only a profound, unnerving, ancient sense of recognition. As if she had been expecting him, a voice bloomed inside his mind. Not sound, not language as he knew it, but pure thought, conveyed with perfect clarity, resonant and melodic, ancient yet achingly familiar. You, at last. The sleeper awakens. Callum instinctively reached for the sidearm holstered on his hip, his fingers brushing the grip before he consciously stopped himself. Drawing a weapon felt absurd, profane taunt in this place, facing this being. Telepathy, undeniable, clear as his own thoughts. Who are you? He stammered, the spoken words feeling crude and inadequate. He wasn't even sure if she perceived sound, but he directed the thought as well. A clumsy, mental projection. A faint smile touched her lips, pale and perfectly formed. The blue light of her markings seemed to brighten, to warm slightly. I am Lira. I am of the Eldari. You carry the resonance, the echo we sought across the void. Your arrival fulfills the long watch. The mental voice was serene, washing over his panic with a wave of calming energy. Resonance, echo. I don't understand. Callum projected back, concentrating, focusing his mental energy. Relieved the connection seemed to be two-way. The catalyst, Lyra's thought voice replied. Her amethyst gaze flickered towards his right hand, the one that had touched the pod, the one that still tingled faintly from the energy discharge. Your blood, your life essence, it carries the marker, the genetic signature left by the first travelers when they visited your world, seeding the potential for this convergence. First travelers, seeding, genetic convergence, the fragmented theories of ancient astronauts, fringe science on Earth, suddenly snapped into sharp, terrifying focus. They were real. Her people, the Eldari, had walked the Earth in the cradle of human civilization, not as gods, but as genetic architects, subtly altering nascent human DNA, planting a dormant key, a potential bridge between species, and through the unfathomable lottery of millennia of human history, that key resided within him. The tiny spark hadn't been mere static. It had been a handshake across eons, a bioelectric recognition signal. His touch, perhaps amplified by the faint residue of his blood cells on his skin, had satisfied the final activation protocol. My biosignature woke you, he thought, the scale of it threatening to overwhelm him. You've been waiting all this time for someone with my specific genetics, for the harmonic match, Lira confirmed. The markings on her skin pulsed gently, the blue softening, swirling with threads of emerald green. He began to realize they weren't static tattoos, they were dynamic, bioluminescent displays. intricately linked to her physiology, perhaps her thoughts or emotions. Our hibernation cycles are measured in ages. We sleep, conserving the fire of life, while the Nexus Guardians monitor the seeded gene lines across designated worlds, waiting, listening for a carrier of the prime resonance to approach an active nexus point, such as this chamber. Guardians, other nexuses, Callum asked, his scientific training kicking in despite the sheer extraordinariness of it all. He needed context, data points. Even in this impossible situation, they sleep. Lira's mental voice resonated with a profound, ancient sadness. The green in her markings faded, receding back to the baseline blue. Most, I fear, sleep the final sleep now. Our era waned before the great work was complete. The seeding was vast, spanning galaxies, but the probability of a perfect harmonic match, returning to an active nexus within the cycle of viability, grew vanishingly small as eons passed. Many worlds fell silent. Many gene lines fractured or died out. Zerath 9, Ethelgard, was one of the last designated sanctuaries, a repository of hope against fading light. She took a silent, graceful step towards him, her movements fluid, hypnotic. She extended a slender, pale hand, palm upwards, an invitation across species, across time. Your presence here, now. It confirms the lineage we seeded on your world not only survived but endured, flourished perhaps, on Earth. He stared at her outstretched hand, then at his own gloved one. The impulse to connect was overwhelming, a pull stronger than logic or fear. He hesitated only a heartbeat before reaching out, placing his gloved palm against her bare one. It wasn't cold, as he might have expected from cryosleep. It was warm, vibrant, radiating a gentle energy that flowed into him, tingling up his arm. Not like electricity, but like life itself recognizing its counterpart. The mental connection between them deepened exponentially, blossoming, images, sensations. Fragments of understanding flooded his mind, not as disjointed data, but as shared experience, soaring silver vessels gliding through nebulae like cosmic whales, cities of light and crystal humming with unimaginable energies, beings like Lira moving with serene purpose through lush, alien landscapes, the faces of Eldari elders filled with wisdom and a terrible weariness. He saw Earth, young and savage, visited by these star travelers who chose not domination, but a subtle, patient investment in potential. And woven through it all, he felt the echo of Lira's own experience, the crushing loneliness of ages spent in slumber, the dwindling hope, the constant, low-frequency hum of waiting for a connection that might never come. He understood, with sudden, absolute certainty, that he wasn't just a compatible genetic donor. The harmonic match implied something far more profound: partnership, completion, a bond that transcended biology. Lira, he thought her name, the sound of it resonating within the shared space of their minds. It felt right, familiar. What happens now? To you, to us, we are bound, she replied, the green and gold swirling within her markings like miniature galaxies. The awakening is complete, irreversible. My life cycle resumes, anchored by your presence. Your resonance, it stabilizes me. It fulfills the ancient design. She tilted her head, her amethyst eyes studying him with an intensity that was simultaneously analytical and deeply personal, unsettling and comforting. And you, the harmonization has begun within you too. Callum Hayes of Earth. The bond awakens the dormant potential within your own seeded genes. You are changing. He felt it then, more strongly than before. Not just the heightened awareness, the subtle energy thrumming within him, but a deeper shift. A sense of his own biological matrix, recalibrating, responding to her proximity, to the activation of the ancient Eldari genes within him. It wasn't frightening. It felt like recognition. Like a part of himself he never knew existed was finally waking up. The sudden, harsh crackle of his helmet communicator shattered the profound intimacy of the moment like a thrown rock. Hayes, respond immediately. What is your status? Your biotelemetry just went erratic. Report. Commander Trask. The voice was tight with suspicion and irritation. Callum had completely forgotten about the check-in, lost in the wonder and shock of the last hour. Commander. Callum began, his mind racing, trying to formulate a plausible explanation. Ancient alien chamber. Telepathic humanoid awakened by his touch. Genetic compatibility across millennia. Trask would immediately assume contamination. Delirium, hostile alien influence. He would order a full quarantine, likely involving force. Lira wasn't an influence or a specimen. She was Lira, perhaps the last of her kind, and she was linked to him. Hayes, answer me. Trask's voice hardened, losing patience. Orbital confirms your position deep within an uncharted subterranean structure, well outside designated parameters. We are detecting complex, unidentified energy signatures and anomalous biological readings co-located with yours. Explain yourself. Now. That is a direct order. Lira's hand, still linked with his, tightened almost imperceptibly. Her markings flared, shifting towards a sharp, anxious crimson. Danger approaches. Her thought was a clear warning bell in his mind. Those who follow you will not comprehend. They operate from fear and dominance. They will see only a prize, a thing to be captured, studied, controlled. Commander, I've encountered something significant, Callum said, struggling to keep his voice level. Professional. Possible first contact situation. Non-hostile entity. Extremely ancient archaeological context. Requesting immediate backup from the science team, specifically Dr. Thorne for biological assessment, but under strict non-interference protocols until we understand more. He hoped mentioning Thorne, the mission's senior xenobiologist, might lend credibility. Buy time. Negative. Dr. Hayes. Trask's reply was instant, glacial. Your authorization for independent action is hereby revoked due to gross violation of mission protocols. Doctor, Thorne is already being briefed. A fully equipped security detachment under my direct command is en route to your position via heavy lander. Estimated arrival, 15 minutes. Your orders are to secure the entity, non-lethally if possible, and await our arrival. Do not, repeat, do not allow it to leave the structure. Acknowledge. Secure the entity. Not make contact. Not assess. Secure, like a piece of equipment or a dangerous animal. They come to cage me, Lira whispered in his mind. Her fear a cold echo within him. Her eyes darted towards the tunnel entrance, though it remained dark and silent for now. They will sever the bond. They will take me away. No. The word was a silent roar in his own mind, a sudden, absolute conviction that eclipsed years of training, discipline, and ingrained obedience to authority. He looked at Lira, at the impossible, beautiful being who represented a legacy stretching back to the dawn of humanity, whose existence was now tied to his in ways he was only beginning to grasp. He saw the flicker of fear beneath the ancient composure in her amethyst eyes. No, they won't, he thought back fiercely, the protective instinct absolute. He looked down at their joined hands, then back at her. We have to get out of here, right now. He reached up and decisively cut the external comlink, silencing Trask mid-sentence. The sudden return to the resonant silence of the cavern felt both liberating and terrifying. 15 minutes, maybe less. Heavy lander meant troops, weapons, Commander Trask in person. He scanned the vast chamber desperately. The tunnel he'd entered through was the only way in or out that he knew of. A death trap. Lira released his hand and turned, her attention instantly drawn to a specific section of the cavern wall opposite the entrance. The glowing tracery there seemed denser, more intricate, converging on a point that looked no different from the rest of the shimmering surface. There is another way, her thought came, urgent and focused. A passage sealed by the first guardians, accessible only to the awakened Eldari and their bonded counterpart when the Nexus is active. Our combined resonance, now that the awakening is complete, it should be strong enough to open the gate. She moved quickly towards the wall, placing her palm flat against the glowing surface at the convergence point. Her markings pulsed intensely, flowing through a rapid sequence of colors: blue, green, gold, dark crimson, white, like a complex key turning in an invisible lock. Place your hand beside mine, Callum. Focus your intent. Share your energy. Will the way open with me? Feel the harmony between us. He didn't hesitate. He placed his bare hand he'd forgotten to reglove it again flat on the wall beside hers. The surface felt strangely alive, warm and vibrating with energy. He closed his eyes, shutting out the cavern. The threat, focusing entirely on Lira, on the undeniable connection that hummed between them, a tangible force. He visualized a doorway, an escape, pouring his own nascent energy, his will, into the wall through his palm. He felt Lyra's focused power merge with his own, amplifying, resonating. The wall beneath their hands grew warmer, then intensely hot, though it didn't burn. The tracery flared, becoming almost too bright to look at even through his closed eyelids, with a deep, resonant chime, far more musical than the grinding sound he might have expected. A section of the wall, perfectly seamless moments before, dissolved into shimmering particles of light, revealing a new tunnel opening. This one was darker, narrower, and seemed to descend even deeper into the planet's crust. Quickly, Lira urged, pulling him by the hand towards the opening as the first faint, distant sounds of armored boots echoed from the entrance tunnel he'd used. This path leads towards the deep sanctuaries, towards the Eldari heart of this world. The shimmering particles coalesced back into a solid wall behind them as they stepped through, plunging them into near absolute darkness, lit only by the soft, shifting glow of Lyra's own bioluminescence. Deep sanctuaries, Callum echoed, stumbling slightly in the sudden dark, relying on her grip and the faint light from her skin. The sounds of pursuit were cut off abruptly by the resealed wall. The sanctum vault. Her mental voice was filled with reverence, awe, and a new layer of urgency. Where the Ark of Souls rests, the central codex containing the entirety of the Eldari genetic legacy on Zerath 9. The essence of my people, preserved across ages. It is the true heart of the Nexus. It must be protected from those who would plunder it, and perhaps it holds the key to our future, to the full potential of our bond. They moved swiftly into the descending blackness, Lira navigating the unseen path with an uncanny certainty that felt instinctual, or perhaps guided by senses he didn't possess. He followed her light, the ebb and flow of colors on her skin, painting the tunnel walls in fleeting, ghostly patterns: blue calm, green concentration, flashes of crimson anxiety when she paused, seeming to listen to the deep rock around them. He felt the changes within himself accelerating in the enclosed space, in her constant proximity. His night vision was definitely improving, resolving the tunnel walls from absolute black into shades of deep gray. His hearing sharpened, picking up the faint trickle of unseen water, the whisper of air currents, the low-frequency hum of the planet itself, and the faint tracery he'd first noticed on Lira, then glimpsed on himself, now seemed permanently visible on his forearms when he focused. A faint network of silver lines beneath his skin, pulsing softly in time with hers. Harmonization, hybridization. It was real. It was happening. The fear of the unknown was still there, a cold knot in his stomach, pursued by the power of xenovations, heading towards an ancient alien mystery of unimaginable power. But overriding it all was the profound, electrifying certainty that he was exactly where he was supposed to be, with the being he was destined to find. The journey into the heart of Zerath 9, into the heart of an ancient legacy, had truly begun. He would shield Lira, shield their bond, shield the secrets they carried, or die trying. The descent continued, the tunnel spiraling downwards like the thread of a colossal screw boring into the planet's core. The smooth, pearlescent walls of the upper passage gave way to rougher-hewn rock, interspersed with sections of the Eldari material, suggesting they had utilized and enhanced natural lava tubes or tectonic fissures for these deeper passages. The air grew noticeably warmer, thick, with the smell of geothermal activity, sulfur, minerals, and the damp, fecund scent of deep earth. Water trickled down the walls in places, catching the light of Lira's markings like strings of fleeting jewels. Callum found himself moving with an unexpected endurance. The fatigue he should have felt kept at bay by the strange, vital energy that seemed to flow between him and Lira, amplified by the harmonization process. His senses continued to sharpen, reaching an acuity that felt superhuman. He could almost taste the mineral content of the air, feel the subtle shifts in barometric pressure, hear the distant groaning of rock strata deep below. How much further? He projected mentally, conserving breath in the increasingly warm and humid air. And are you sure Trask can't follow us? Lira paused, turning to face him in the narrow passage. Her markings pulsed a steady, reassuring green. The path we took can only be opened by the bonded resonance. It is sealed against intrusion. They may search the upper chamber, but they cannot follow us here unless. A flicker of violet uncertainty crossed her features. Unless they possess technology capable of mimicking or forcing Eldari energy signatures. Unlikely, based on what I sense of their technological level, but not impossible. As for the distance, the sanctum is not measured in terrestrial units. Callum. It lies within a nexus of folded space, anchored to this planet's core energies. We are close in one sense, yet the final approaches are guarded. We must pass the threshold guardians. You mentioned guardians before. Callum recalled. Beings of energy and intent. How do we face them? We do not face them as adversaries. Lira corrected gently. They are tests, sentinels bound to the vault's integrity. They perceive resonance, intent, harmony. They will probe our bond, our shared purpose. If our harmony is true, if our intent towards the ark is pure, preservation, not exploitation, they will permit passage. If there is dissonance, conflict within us or between us, or if our intent is tainted, they will repel us, violently. Her expression grew solemn. No Eldari has approached the vault since the long sleep began. We do not know how the Guardians will react after so many dormant ages. The weight of their responsibility settled heavily on Callum. They weren't just fleeing Trask. They were pilgrims approaching a sacred site, carrying the hope of a lost civilization. And their own nascent bond was the key, the password. Failure meant not just their own capture or death, but potentially the permanent loss of the Eldari legacy. He thought again of Dr. Eris Thorne. Thorne was ambitious, yes, and clearly susceptible to Trask's manipulations. But he was also a brilliant biologist. Would he understand the implications if he saw Lira, saw the evidence of the bond? Could he potentially be an ally? Or was his jealousy and desire for recognition too deeply ingrained? The uncertainty gnawed at him. Thorne knew Callum's interest in anomalous energy fields. He might guess Callum would seek out the source. He might even possess theoretical knowledge, gleaned from obscure studies or captured data fragments from previous Xenovations probes, about energy signatures that could hint at Eldari technology. They rounded a sharp bend, and the tunnel opened into a small circular chamber. The air here felt different, charged, expectant. Ahead, blocking the exit tunnel, hung a shimmering curtain of pure energy, translucent and fluid, like woven moonlight. It rippled softly, emitting a low, multi-toned hum that resonated deep in Callum's bones. Faint, spectral shapes seemed to coalesce and dissolve within its depths. The first threshold, Lira sent, her voice hushed, her markings shifting to a focused, vigilant gold. It senses us. Prepare yourself. Clear your mind of fear. Focus only on our unity, our purpose. What do I do? Callum asked, feeling the hairs on his arms prickle as the energy from the curtain washed over him. It felt ancient, powerful, and utterly neutral, like a fundamental force of nature. Stand beside me. Take my hand. Project our shared essence towards it. Let it see the harmony. Let it feel the resonance. She reached for his hand, her bare skin meeting his. The familiar warmth flowed between them, steadying him. Together, they walked slowly towards the shimmering barrier. As they drew within a few meters, the humming intensified, the pitch rising, and the light within the curtain swirled faster, forming intricate, shifting geometric patterns that seemed to probe and analyze them. He felt a distinct mental pressure, not painful, but intensely focused, like 1,000 eyes examining every facet of his being, his thoughts, his emotions, his memories, the very sequence of his DNA, especially the newly awakened Eldari strands. It searched for his intent, his connection to Lira, the authenticity of the bond. He forced himself to remain calm, focusing entirely on Lira, on the undeniable reality of their connection, the warmth of her hand, the shared energy flowing between them, the nascent life stirring within him. He felt Lira doing the same, her mental presence a beacon of serene strength beside him. He projected feelings of protection towards her, of awe towards the legacy she represented, of hope for the future they might build. The probing intensified, searching for any flicker of doubt, deception, or hostile intent. For a terrifying instant, the image of Trask's face, cold and predatory, flashed through Callum's mind, a sliver of fear and anger momentarily disrupting his focus. The energy curtain reacted instantly, flickering violently, shifting to an angry, unstable crimson. The humming became a dissonant screech. Callum. Focus. Lira's thought was sharp, urgent. Release the fear. Only the bond matters now. Believe in us. He pushed the image of Trask away, forcing it down, concentrating fiercely on Lira, on the feel of her hand, the soft glow of her skin, the steady rhythm of her breathing that he could now somehow sense, even through his suit. He poured all his concentration into the feeling of connection, the truth of their shared destiny. The crimson faded from the curtain, slowly replaced by swirling patterns of emerald and gold, then finally settling into a brilliant, stable white. The dissonant screech resolved into a clear, harmonious chord that resonated through the chamber. The curtain of light thinned, dissolved, parting like mist to reveal the tunnel continuing on the other side. They stepped through, breathing heavily. The air beyond the threshold felt cleaner, purer, vibrating with residual energy. Okay, Callum managed, his voice shaky. Lesson learned. No distractions. The Guardians are sensitive, Lira confirmed, though the gold in her markings still held a trace of warning. They test the core of intent, but they accepted us. They know our purpose is preservation. She paused, tilting her head as if listening. Yet, they also sense the discord following us. Trask's pursuit casts a shadow. Even here, we must proceed quickly. They continued their journey, the tunnels now showing more signs of deliberate construction. The walls were smoother, inlaid with veins of glowing crystal that provided a soft, ambient light, reducing the reliance on Lyra's bioluminescence. The air grew warmer still, but the oppressive humidity lessened, replaced by a clean, ionized scent. Like the air after a thunderstorm, they encountered two more thresholds, each more complex and demanding than the last. The second barrier tested their emotional harmony, forcing them to confront and reconcile any lingering fears or reservations about their bond and their future. The third tested their shared knowledge, seeming to draw upon the Eldari lore Lira possessed and the scientific understanding Callum brought, seeking a synthesis, a complementary understanding. Each passage was mentally and emotionally draining, but each success forged their bond stronger, accelerating Callum's harmonization. The silver tracery beneath his skin was now clearly visible, glowing faintly in sympathy with Lyra's markings. He felt new pathways opening in his mind, an intuitive understanding of the Eldari energy principles, a nascent ability to sense and even manipulate the energy fields around them. Finally, after what felt like hours of descent and trials, the tunnel opened dramatically, not into a chamber, but onto a narrow ledge overlooking an abyss of staggering proportions. It was a spherical cavern of truly colossal size, perhaps kilometers in diameter, its distant walls lined with pulsating crystal lattices that bathed the immense space in a soft, shifting rainbow of light. Far below, covering the entire floor of the sphere, were countless rows of crystalline pods, arranged in intricate, concentric patterns like the seeds of some cosmic flower. Thousands, tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of them, all dark, all dormant, and suspended directly in the cavern's vast center, floating untethered against the backdrop of the crystalline walls, was the arc. It defied description, a sphere of pure, condensed energy, hundreds of meters in diameter, swirling with internal currents of light that resembled galaxies, nebulae, intricate matrices of pure information. It radiated palpable power, a low, resonant hum that was the source of all the energy signatures they had tracked. It was the heart of the Nexus, the Sanctum Vault, the Ark of Souls. "We are here," Lyra breathed, her mental voice filled with profound awe, reverence, and sorrow. The final legacy, the sleeping memories of my people, all that remains. Callum could only stare, speechless. The scale, the beauty, the sheer technological and spiritual power of the place was overwhelming, dwarfing any human achievement, humbling him to his core. Compared to this, the Odyssey was a child's toy. Xenovation's ambitions petty and insignificant. The Ark core requires full activation, Lira explained, her focus sharpening. She pointed towards two crystalline platforms extending from the ledge they stood on, positioned directly beneath the immense energy sphere. Intricate glyphs, matching the Eldari markings, glowed softly on their surfaces. The final key. We must stand upon the activation glyphs, together, our bonded resonance, amplified by the Nexus. is the only force that can awaken the Ark fully, access the codices within, and perhaps initiate the preservation protocol. Preservation protocol, Callum asked, tearing his eyes away from the breathtaking spectacle of the Ark. A final contingency, Lira said grimly. If the Nexus is compromised, if the physical Ark is threatened, the protocol allows the core data, the genetic sequences, the historical records, the essential consciousness patterns to be transferred, imprinted onto the bonded pair whose resonance activates it. We would become living arcs, but the energy required is immense. It has never been tested. They stepped onto the crystalline platforms. As their feet touched the glowing glyphs, the patterns flared brightly, energy surging up through their bodies. The entire cavern resonated, the light from the walls intensifying, the dormant pods on the floor below beginning to emit a faint, collective hum. The colossal arc sphere above them began to rotate, slowly at first, then faster, its internal galaxies swirling into complex, dynamic patterns, an unimaginable torrent of information. Pure data flooded Callum's mind, bypassing language, implanting knowledge directly. He saw the full sweep of Eldari history, their exploration of countless galaxies, their philosophy of interconnectedness, their mastery of bioenergetics and space-time manipulation. He saw the conception and execution of the great work, the seeding of life, the millennia-long search for harmonic species. He witnessed their slow decline, a fading of vitality, a loss of connection. The reasons still unclear but hinted at. Perhaps a consequence of their own vast power, a spiritual entropy. He felt Lira beside him, experiencing the same deluge, her ancient memories merging with the Ark's data, their minds linked, processing, understanding together. He felt her grief for her lost civilization, her fierce determination to protect its legacy, and the burgeoning, defiant hope represented by their bond, by the new life forming within her. The Ark pulsed, a colossal heartbeat, acknowledging them, accepting their bonded signature as the legitimate inheritors. The pods below glowed brighter, the hum rising to a powerful chord. The activation was nearing completion. It was then that the intrusion shattered the sanctity of the moment. A grating sound echoed from the tunnel entrance behind them, the unmistakable whine of a heavy-duty plasma cutter breaching the sealed passage. Then, harsh, amplified voices, distorted by helmet comms. Breach complete. Move in. Sector secure. Callum and Lira spun around, ripped from their communion with the Ark. Standing on the ledge, framed against the tunnel opening now scarred by molten rock and plasma burns, was Commander Trask, his faceplate reflecting the Ark's light, his expression grimly triumphant. He was flanked by 2 squads of heavily armed Xenovation security troopers in full combat exoskeletons, their plasma rifles leveled, and standing slightly behind Trask, looking pale, conflicted, but ultimately resolute, was Dr. Eris Thorne, holding a sophisticated energy scanner. Thorne wouldn't meet Callum's eyes. The resonance signature was unique, Thorne mumbled, adjusting his scanner. I theorized it might be susceptible to focused harmonic disruption. The cutter frequency matched an Eldari energy pattern extrapolated from deep space probe fragments, Xenovations acquired decades ago. Classified, of course. So, Thorne hadn't just guided them, he'd provided the means to bypass the Eldari seals. The betrayal felt complete, absolute. Dr. Hayes. Step away from the alien and the console, Trask commanded, his voice amplified, booming across the cavern. Lira, you will accompany us. Resistance is futile. This facility and its contents are now the property of the Xenovations Corporation. Secured under Interstellar Salvage Act 7. Lira's markings blazed incandescent crimson, radiating palpable anger and defiance. They dare. Her thought was a razor's edge in Callum's mind. They profane this sacred place with their greed and violence. Trask, you have no idea what you're doing, Callum yelled, stepping forward, positioning himself between Lira and the soldiers, feeling the nascent Eldari energy surge within him, tingling under his skin. This isn't salvage. This is a living civilization's legacy. You can't just take it. Watch me, Doctor, Trask sneered, gesturing to his troops. Secure the assets. Prioritize the female alien. Use stun settings initially. But lethal force is authorized if they or this facility pose a threat. The troopers advanced, their heavy boots clanging on the crystalline ledge. Callum felt Lira tense beside him, felt her fear intertwined with fierce protectiveness. They were exposed, caught between the awakening arc and corporate military force. The activation sequence was still incomplete, vulnerable. The arc, Lira projected desperately. It cannot fall into their hands. The preservation protocol. Callum, it's the only way now. As the first troopers raised their stun rifles, the cavern itself seemed to react to the hostile intrusion. The immense arc sphere pulsed erratically, its light flickering. The crystalline walls groaned, fine cracks appearing, spiderwebbing outwards from the breached tunnel entrance. The platforms beneath their feet vibrated violently. Trask's forced entry, the presence of weapons, the aggressive intent, it was destabilizing the ancient systems, overloading the delicate balance of the nexus. Hold your fire, Trask barked, noticing the rapidly deteriorating situation. Dust and small crystal fragments began to rain down from the cavern's ceiling. Thorn. Report. What's happening? Thorn frantically checked his scanner, his eyes wide with terror. The energy matrix is destabilizing. Commander, containment failure imminent. The arc core is going critical. This whole place, the entire spatial nexus, it's collapsing. Panic rippled through the troopers. Some lowered their weapons, glancing nervously at the groaning walls. The flickering arc. Trask, for the first time, looked uncertain, his acquisitive drive clashing with primal self-preservation. Lira locked eyes with Callum, her amethyst gaze clear, resolute. The protocol. Callum, now. To stabilize the core and transfer the essence. It will drain us, perhaps, extinguish our physical forms, but the legacy, our child, will live on. Within the data stream, within the bond, he looked at her, at the millennia of hope she embodied, at the impossible future conceived between them. He looked at Trask, the embodiment of humanity's short-sighted greed. The choice wasn't a choice at all. Do it, he sent back, his voice thick with emotion but firm, turning their backs on the advancing troopers, ignoring Trask's enraged shouts. They faced the wildly fluctuating arc core, raising their hands, palms outwards. They focused their entire being, their bonded resonance, their very life force, into the swirling chaos of energy. Twin beams of pure, white gold light erupted from their hands, lancing into the heart of the arc. Callum felt an indescribable drain, as if his soul itself was being siphoned away. His vision dimmed, the roar of the collapsing cavern fading to a distant hum. The silver tracery covering his body flared with incandescent brilliance, then began to fade rapidly as his energy poured into the arc. He felt Lira beside him, matching his sacrifice, her energy flowing in perfect harmony with his. The effect on the arc was immediate. Its chaotic pulsations smoothed out, the violent flickering ceased. replaced by a steady, incredibly bright internal radiance. The swirling galaxies within resolved into patterns of serene, complex beauty. The groaning of the cavern walls lessened, the structure stabilizing, held together by the ark's now controlled energy field. The dormant pods below pulsed with a final, collective glow, their precious contents secured, shielded. The preservation protocol was initiated. The core, data, the essence of the Eldari, began transferring, integrating into the bonded energy matrix of Callum and Lira. Callum felt his knees buckle, darkness closing in fast. The last vestiges of his strength fled. He pitched forward, caught just before hitting the platform by Lira, who was trembling violently. Her own light dimmed to a faint, ethereal shimmer. Callum. Her voice was a fragile whisper in his mind, filled with exhaustion and love. Through the gray fog clouding his senses, he heard Trask's voice, sharp with renewed purpose now that the immediate collapse seemed averted. It's stabilized. The energy readings are astronomical. Thorn, analyze that data flow. Troopers. Secure the subjects. Now, they're weakened. Take them. Heavy boots pounded towards them again. Lira knelt beside Callum, cradling his head. Her hand pressed against his chest. He felt a final, gentle pulse of warmth from her, a sharing of her last reserves. Then, she looked up, her gaze fixing on the approaching soldiers, her amethyst eyes suddenly blazing with the fierce, indomitable light of a cornered supernova. No, the thought slammed through the cavern. Not just a mental projection, but a wave of pure force that made the troopers falter, staggering back. You will not take him. You will not profane our future. With immense effort, she placed her other hand protectively over her own abdomen. Her faded markings flared one last time, not crimson with anger, but a brilliant, life-affirming gold, pulsing with a steady, rhythmic beat, a heartbeat, but not just one. Two distinct beats, intertwined, harmonious. I carry our child. Callum. Her thought resonated through his fading consciousness. A lifeline. A defiant declaration of hope against the encroaching darkness. The next cycle begins. A new life. A bridge between worlds. The true heir to the ark, born of resonance. Conceived in the heart of the nexus. The Eldari legacy lives. Within us, the revelation surged through Callum like an electric current, pushing back the darkness, igniting a spark in his depleted core. A child, their child, a hybrid inheritor, proof that their bond was more than energy, more than genetics. It was creation. He fought to stay conscious, fueled by a sudden, desperate need to protect this impossible, precious future. Lira struggled to her feet, facing Trask and his stunned soldiers. The ambient light of the stabilized ark seemed to coalesce around her, forming a protective aura. Thorn stared, his scientific detachment shattered, finally comprehending the true magnitude of their discovery. Commander, he breathed, his voice filled with awe and terror. It's not just biology, it's Genesis. Trask, momentarily thrown by the revelation and the palpable power radiating from Lira, hesitated. His corporate mandate warred with the undeniable evidence of something far beyond his comprehension. But years of indoctrination won out. The potential, genetic, strategic value, he muttered, then hardened his voice. Secure them, all three of them, carefully. But Lira wasn't waiting for capture. She pulled Callum upright, lending him strength he didn't know he had, his body responding to the presence of their unborn child, to the completed preservation protocol now humming within their shared energy field. There is one final passage. Her thought was urgent, precise, an egress conduit linked to the ark core. reserved for the designated inheritors carrying the activated codex. The promise of continuation is the key. She guided him swiftly towards a section of the cavern wall behind the now serenely humming arc core. As they approached, the solid crystal dissolved into a shimmering gateway of light, revealing a narrow, steeply ascending tunnel. They stumbled through just as Trask's troopers, recovering their nerve, opened fire again. Plasma bolts sizzled, impacting harmlessly against the instantly resealed wall of light. They heard Trask's enraged roar, muffled and abruptly cut off as the portal vanished completely. The escape tunnel pulsed with soft, internal light, clean and functional. It climbed sharply, the air within feeling fresh, energized. They moved as quickly as their drained bodies allowed, Lira supporting Callum, both drawing strength from the knowledge of the child and the vast library of Eldari essence now woven into their very being. Below them, the sanctum vault settled into a new state of protected dormancy, its physical treasures safe, its true legacy now mobile, alive. Where? Callum gasped, the climb steep, his lungs burning despite the enriched air. Where are we going? Surface. Lira sent, her mental voice steady, reassuring. There was an old outpost near this egress point. Small dot shielded, likely forgotten even by the Eldari themselves before the sleep. If the ages have been kind, it may still hold a functional skyboat, enough to leave Zerath 9 behind. Leave, and go where? He asked, daring to hope. Earth. She replied without hesitation. Her amethyst eyes met his, glowing softly in the tunnel light, filled with unwavering love and purpose. Your home, our child's birthright. We carry the ark within us now. Callum, the core data, the memories, the potential of my people, integrated into our bonded matrix through the preservation protocol. We are the living vault. A faint smile touched her lips. Perhaps your world is finally ready, not for the harshness of corporate exploitation, but for true connection, for harmonization. We can show them the way. We are the proof. They emerged from the hidden tunnel exit into the soft twilight of Zerath, 9's twin moons. The ochre landscape was bathed in silver and shadow. The thin wind whispered around them, carrying the scent of dust and distance. Nearby, nestled in a shallow depression, half camouflaged by wind-blown sand but structurally intact, was a small, elegantly curved Eldari structure, a hangar. And inside, resting on its landing supports like a patient silver bird, was a single sky boat, its hull gleaming faintly. Miraculously preserved, the ancient vessel responded instantly to Lira's touch, its systems humming to life, recognizing her Eldari signature. The Arc Codex within her, the cockpit configuration, felt alien yet intuitively understandable to Callum, his harmonized senses easily integrating with the Eldari interface. Silently, gracefully, the skyboat lifted from the hangar, rising above the desolate landscape, leaving the wounded planet behind. Callum looked back, seeing the distant lights of Trask's landing zone, but no sign of pursuit. They were away. They were free. Lira manipulated the controls, initiating a complex sequence. Energy pulsed from the vessel, back towards the planet, sealing the sanctum's egress points remotely and simultaneously outwards. A tightly focused beam aimed towards the distant star system that housed Earth. The final stage of the protocol, she explained, broadcasting the core codex, encrypted, keyed to our combined biosignatures and the unique resonance of our child, not as a weapon, not as an invasion, but as an offering, a message of peace, of shared heritage, of potential partnership. It preserves the Eldari legacy, making it accessible, should humanity prove wise enough to accept it. Callum reached across the console, taking her hand. His own skin glowed softly where their fingers interlaced. The Eldari tracery, a visible map of their connection. He looked at her, truly seeing the culmination of millennia, the strength, the sacrifice, the love radiating from her. They will be wise enough, Lira, he said, his voice filled with a fierce, hard-won conviction. When they meet you, when they understand our story, when they see our child, they'll choose connection over conquest. They have to. Lira leaned against him, resting her head on his shoulder, the light of her markings softening to a tranquil blend of hopeful gold and contented green. I believe you. Callum Hayes of Earth, I choose to believe. Their small vessel, an ark carrying the future of two species and the legacy of a third, accelerated towards the distant blue-white star of Sol. Behind them, Zirath 9 dwindled, a silent testament to wonders hidden and dangers faced. Ahead lay Earth, an unknown reception, inevitable challenges, but a shared destination. Their arrival wouldn't be announced by fleets or ultimatums, but by the quiet, undeniable resonance of their bond and the existence of their child. Months later, after cautious contact, tense negotiations, and intense scientific and public debate, humanity, faced with the undeniable proof of the Eldari legacy within Callum and Lira, and the profound potential represented by their hybrid child, chose a different path. Fear gave way to wonder, suspicion to cautious acceptance. Callum and Lira, the unlikely pair forged in the heart of an alien world, became reluctant ambassadors. Their unique family, the cornerstone of a new interspecies dialogue. The Xenovations Corporation, discredited and facing global censure, lost its bid to control the narrative or the technology. A new era began, not defined by corporate greed or military might, but by the slow, patient work of building bridges, fostering understanding, and exploring the possibilities of harmonization. The long sleep of the Eldari had ended not in extinction, but in transformation. Their legacy entrusted to the bond between a human explorer and an ancient sleeper, and the child who embodied the future of both. It was a future born of sacrifice and love, stretching out towards the stars, filled with uncertainty, yet luminous with hope, a truly happy and profoundly new beginning.